honey, you lose me, then you'll be left alone. Oh, baby, telephone and tell me I'm your own.
All the directors had a certain amount of Bugs Bunny cartoons they had to make each year, maybe one or two Porky Pig and Daffy Duck cartoons, and then maybe one or two of their own characters. Friz Freleng would do a Tweety and Sylvester. Robert McKimson would do a Foghorn Leghorn. Chuck Jones would do a Pepe Le Pew.
Ah, les belles femmes skunk fatales.
And then all of the directors had a space to do one or two miscellaneous cartoons that did not feature any of those characters. Maybe it would develop a new character. Maybe it would just be a one-shot idea that would only be funny for one cartoon. And One Frog Evening is one of those.
All of Chuck Jones' great cartoons were written by Mike Maltese in collaboration with Chuck. They really had a close and wonderfully fruitful collaboration, and they brought out the best in each other. So One Froggy Evening is a brilliant piece of work that some people, again, see as a great and profound parable. I don't know if they saw it as a great and profound parable when they wrote it. I think it was just an idea, a funny idea they had.
Personally, I think One Froggy Evening is one of the most perfect cartoons ever made. It's a wonderful parable of greed. It's beautifully animated. It's wonderfully timed. It's very funny. And its story is perfect for the length, yet suggests that it's part of an ongoing cycle of something longer and greater. It also stands out as an example of the kind of discipline Chuck Jones liked to set for himself to keep himself challenged and to find and explore new ways of doing things.
This is the vital factor in all comedy or all drama, is what are your disciplines? The discipline here was that nobody was to hear the voice of the frog except the guy that found it. And the only voice that you would hear, the only voice would be that of the frog. But it had to be natural. That just seemed like it was natural. That, to me, is the most difficult of all.
You don't have any dialogue other than the lyrics that the frog is singing.
Come back to wearing my Barney.
And every emotion and every action is clear and defined and fun to watch.
Look at the expressions on the faces of the fellow who's trying to sell this frog as he goes from dreaming of wealth to utter despair.
The more I see it, the more I see things in it, and the more I learn to really and truly appreciate it. I was privileged to assist Ken Harris, who was known to be the great animator for dance numbers. I had the opportunity to do a lot of work on the cartoon, especially the dance scenes.
And then the curtain comes in. It's just beautifully timed and wonderful. You know, we can all identify with that. We've all been a frog at one time or another. Or we've been the guy that tried to promote the frog, you know.
When Ken Harris does his dance to Hello My Baby, he's as high-stepping and as exciting as any hoofer you would ever see. And when he sings, it's with such gusto. At the same token, when he's just being a frog and croaking with the line of his lip going up as the croak goes along his mouth, he's as uninspiring and devoid of personality as any frog you'd pick up out of a stream when you were a little kid.
Warner Brothers contracted a singer around town. He was popularly known as Bill Roberts, and he just had a glorious baritone that lent itself to caricature. He'd already done a cartoon for Tex Avery. When Tex Avery was at MGM in '47, he did the operatic voice in this cartoon called Little Tinker about a skunk. But he was known around Hollywood for working in nightclubs. The publicity says that he was actually a favorite in nightclubs of people like Lucille Ball and Jack Benny. There was something about his voice.
The great thing about the use of music in One Froggy Evening is that maybe that frog's been sealed up, since 1918, and in 1955, got him out of the cornerstone. But he remembers all the songs from 1918. That's a good use of music to show character, you see what I mean? Because it kind of shows you where the frog came from, his theatrical background.
Everything in that cartoon is basically a Tin Pan Alley song from the turn of the century. He does sing one classical piece. They're in the park, and the frog is singing Largo a Factotum, the famous aria from The Barber Seville.
I know Chuck used to take great delight in the fact that he and Mike Maltese had written the Michigan Rag.
Everybody do the Michigan Rag.
They needed a ragtime song, and they couldn't find one that they liked, so they wrote the Michigan Rag.
That's why in later years it was thought that the frog's name was Michigan J. Frog. It really had no name. Then when Chuck Jones directed one of the Bugs Bunny TV shows 5 years later, they were going to show One Froggy Evening after a commercial break. So a little title card came up with a picture of the frog with his top hat and cane, and it said, coming up next, Enrico.
The name Michigan J. Frog was a name that Chuck Jones came up for the character sometime in the 1970s, probably in response to so many people asking him, what's the name of that frog?
Well, we called him Michigan Frog for a long time until Jay Cox did an article in Time magazine about our stuff, and he said, well, it doesn't sound right, Michigan Frog. It seems like it needs a middle initial. So I said, well, why don't we use your name, Jay Cox, as the writer for Time. So that's how he became to be known as Michigan J. Frog. But I don't know, it sounds right, doesn't it?
It's extraordinary that a character who only appeared once in one cartoon, without any other starring character at his side, could have such a lasting impact.
I think because he comes so alive in that one cartoon, people think they've seen him more than they have, when in fact, there's only been the one, and he remains unique and a gem and part of just this perfect little cartoon.
Note that the cornerstone of the building that the frog is in is the Tregowith Brown building. It was an in-joke referring to Treg Brown, the great sound man at the Warner Brothers Cartoon Studio.